You've heard of a holding company, but do you actually need one? Today I'm going to talk about what is a holding company, what it's not, and how it's typically used. Just a bit of an introduction, so stick around if those are things you want to find out about. So what exactly is a holding company? A holding company is a separate corporation that owns shares in your operating company. So you might say, what is the operating company? Well, the operating company is the company that earns money on a day-to-day from the services you provide or the products that you sell. And the profits that you have in that operating company gets transferred and is held and invested and protected by being put in the holding company. So you might say, why would one want to do that? Well, typically it starts for creditor protection reasons. So if your operating company gets sued, and all those assets are sitting in the operating company, then potentially they could be part of this claim. However, if your operating company gets sued and those assets are sitting in the holding company, they are protected. So once those assets are transferred to the holding company and they're moved up to the holding company, a plaintiff can't touch them. So where I've seen that is definitely lawyers, doctors, incorporated professionals, engineers, contractors, consultants. Quite frankly, anyone who's incorporated and have concerns about credit protection, then that's where I see holding company becomes part of it. But beyond just that, there are also alternatives, because one could have a corporation and instead of having the money stay in a corporation, they could pull it out personally. But if they pull it out personally, what you'll find is that the tax rate is typically going to be much higher than it is for a corporation. Corporation tax rate, if you're considered a small business, if you meet the small business deduction, which is $500,000, it's going to be about 12%, around about 12%, 12.2 or so if you're in Ontario. Not too far off if you're in different provinces. Versus, depending on how much you're making personally, that rate could go as high as 53.53% if you're in Ontario, and similar rates if you're in different provinces. So the opportunity here is also to move that money into the holdco as opposed to taking it personally, have that money get deferred and have that money compound, right? So the invested money stays in the holdco. You defer tax liability, and if you do need it, you could always take from it, but the opportunity here is for it to defer and to compound. And what you're actually doing is compounding on pre-personal tax dollars. Again, if you've met the small business deduction rate, you're going to get taxed potentially at a much, much lower rate. Additional benefits too for the holding company is it's a cleaner wealth transfer. What that means is, in addition to a range of things, estate planning purposes, it's also a way for you to hold life insurance policies. This is another way I've seen it. And the debt benefit flows through the capital dividend account tax-free. And what that allows for is the beneficiaries to receive a tax, essentially a tax-free dividend. So the wealth transfers to the next generation significantly cleaner. And if that's not in place, the life insurance policy is in place, without that structure, the CRA could often be a better and a very much happy beneficiary at death than your potential family members or entities that you would want to benefit from this. Now let's talk about who actually needs a holding company. Here are some of the things to look for. You consistently earn more than you actually need personally, right? The opportunity to have it stay deferred in holding company and still creditor protected. Obviously, you want to protect your assets. That's usually one of the driving things. If you have retained earnings and you're building that up in your corporation, right? Another thing is for estate planning purposes. We didn't get too deep into that here in this video. Probably talk about another one. But if you think about succession or estate planning, that may be an opportunity to look at a holding company. Who it's not for. If you're just starting out and drawing everything you earn, typically it's not going to be for you. The added accounting and legal costs, if it's too much, then that's something you may not want to do. You may not want to get a holding company. If your corporation has little to no retained earnings, it typically doesn't make any sense. Now, the rule of thumb is, usually once you're starting get six figures is kind of where I see it really starts to come into play. And you have, the opportunity for those funds to grow and compound. If it's six figures, but you're going to draw from it immediately, probably not going to be needed there. What's the cost? Well, there are legal fees to setting up a holding company, just like as any company. If you want to get incorporated, you got to pay the legal fees to do that. And there is, of course, administrative fees to keep that organization in play. There's going to be accounting fees every year. They're related companies, quote unquote related companies for accounting purposes, so it might get a bit more complex. So you want to speak with an accountant before you do this and see what the costs are, and look at your situation. Also speak to a lawyer about incorporation and what that looks like and maintaining the company going forward. One thing I also want to point is that a holding company is a structure. It's not a strategy. A lot of people think about it as a strategy. The strategy is what you do inside it, right? And if you want to know more about that, feel free to reach out to somebody in my organization. You'll see the link there. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, just an overview, because I know sometimes this is something that comes up and is a question that you do have. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Take care. Till the next video.